Welcome back, everybody, to the Yore Town Podcast. The voice you're hearing, it's me, it's Matt, it's Beard Laws, and joining me, as always, is the beautiful person behind the camera that makes me so happy every single day, Meg.
Hi.
The time of the recording, Meg. We've been together 5 years, 6 months. That's 5.5, 5.5. Woo-hoo!
Woohoo!
Oh, it didn't sound as exciting from you.
Sorry, it burnt my tongue really bad.
So she burnt her tongue. Then mysteriously, we had some cookie sheets go from on top of our cupboards and land in her hand. It's been an interesting hour around these parts.
It's all coming after me.
That's a scary thing. So you think that I'd be building this up because we were doing something super creepy, but no, we're gonna stick with some like true crime stuff because we're into the true crime stuff, as well as hopefully some other people. But I did read something about that if it's major red flags if you or a partner watches true crime stuff to fall asleep with, according to some kind of survey. Yeah. So good luck to me making it to 6 more months to 6 years.
You watch it too.
Yeah, well, I'm a reader now. See all these books that I haven't read? I've read books on books. But either way, I know you got somewhere to be, and it's time crunches there. So let's go. It's not a new state, but this one was something that we randomly just picked. We're going to head on down south of the bayou in Louisiana. All right, so the opening, Meg. We got sounds of crickets, distant water dripping in an eerie Louisiana bayou, and the ambience is there. Are you picturing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, while you're picturing it, there's a stretch of murky water in Jefferson Davis Parish, which is in Louisiana, where secrets sink like stones. Between 2005 and 2009, the bodies of 8 women were found dumped in the canals, swamps, and back roads of a small town of Jennings. The murders, they obviously sent shockwaves through the town, and investigators should have been all over the case, hunting down a serial killer. But guess what, Meg? Instead, the case has remained unsolved for nearly 20 years, and some believe because the ones who should be solving it might be the ones responsible. So, this is not just a story about murder. It's a story about corruption, cover-ups, and a small Louisiana town caught in a web of lies. This is the case of the Jeff Davis 8. Yeah. If that doesn't have you hooked, do you even like true crime?
Right?
Oh, man, this is... So why one viewer and listener discretion is as advised. Jennings, Louisiana. The town we've talked about in the intro. It's the kind of place where everybody knows everybody. Kind of like Cheers, where they know your name. It's a town of only 10,000 people. It's a quiet, working class community where secrets, they don't stay hidden for long. Does that sound familiar?
Yet they still haven't solved this.
Well, that's what you'd think, at least. So starting in 2005, the town unfortunately became the dumping ground for a killer or killers. Over the course of 4 years, 8 women, all with strikingly similar backgrounds, were found murdered. Their bodies were discarded in remote waterways and fields. And here's what we know about the victims. All 8 women were known to each other, some even friends or relatives. Many of them were involved in sex work and drug use, often in the same circles. Several had connections to law enforcement, either as informants or in other less clear ways. Not making judgments or assumptions. We're just going with what we have found on the internet here.
Interesting.
Yes. So in most cases, with multiple victims, when they're found in the same area with similar profiles, law enforcement immediately start looking for a serial killer, which would make sense, right? But in this case, it's different because rather than tracking down a suspect, it seems like the investigators are actually just trying to bury the truth. Intriguing, right? There is a lot of things in small towns, right?
Yeah.
So the bodies, they start appearing, and so did the inconsistencies in the investigation. Some crime scenes, they weren't even treated as a crime scene. There was no proper evidence collected, no media alerts. In some cases, Meg, the cause of death was never even determined. even though the decomposition, wow,
Decomposition.
whew, levels suggested violent ends. That word got me so bad. I don't know what it was. I feel like, did I just have a stroke on camera? Wow, I'm going to need a doctor.
You all right?
The decomposition. Why was it so hard?
I don't know.
You're welcome, everybody. Cheap entertainment. Family members of the victims, they reported strange behavior from law enforcement, including intimidation, missing evidence, and being told to drop it. One of the most damning details, though, all 8 women were police informants. That means that they were actually helping the law, feeding the enforcement information about the local drug trade, the same drug trade rumored to involve dirty cops and shady local officials. Could it have been the women started to know too much? Let that linger in the old brain for a minute, because the deeper the investigation went, the murkier the waters became. One victim, Whitney Dubois. How would you say that one?
Dubois.
Dubois? Is that a familiar name? Did we just have a Dubois?
I don't think so.
Because we had all girls.
Uh-huh.
I like the way Whitney spelled it, that though. Don't you? It's different. Witnei. Was last seen getting into a truck belonging to a police officer. Then there was another, which was Kristen Lopez, was allegedly at a house owned by a suspected police informant before she disappeared. And at least 2 other victims had previously accused officers of harassment and or abuse. This wasn't just a case of unsolved murders. This, Meg, was a case where the very people in charge of solving them could be, might be, or were involved in them. So there started to be some theories, and then there started to be some whistleblowers. You got a whistleblow? The suspicion grew.
I'm not great at whistling.
2 main theories emerged. The serial killer theory, which some believe a serial killer preyed on vulnerable women, knowing the police wouldn't care enough to investigate. But the connections between the victims suggest this wasn't random. Whoever did this knew them personally. Then we had the police conspiracy theory. This theory obviously suggests that at least some of the women were murdered to silence them. They knew too much about police corruption, the local drug trade, and even potential sex trafficking. Former Jennings police detective Danny Barry was investigated for ties to the case. He later died, Meg, under pretty mysterious circumstances. Then you had a whistleblower, old Frankie Richard, can't trust a man with 2 first names, a known local criminal. Even admitted that he believed the police were involved. But the most chilling part, Meg, multiple witnesses and informants who spoke out all turned up dead.
Yikes.
This is unreal, right?
It is.
But let's go ahead and say, hey, where does this case stand today? And despite numerous books, documentaries, investigative pieces, no one has been arrested for the Jeff Davis 8 murders. So in 2019, the FBI, they said, hey, we're going to take a fresh look at the case. There was no major arrests. Families continue to fight for, obviously, the justice of this, but in a town like Jennings, Louisiana, power runs deep and old secrets die hard. Seems the truth might never fully surface. But one thing is certain, this wasn't just random violence. Either a killer is still out there, or the truth is locked behind a wall of corruption that no one is willing to break down. So you got that question that remains. Will the people of Jennings ever get their justice? What do you think?
I don't know.
Do you think they're ever going to get justice? Or
Well, the way it's going, I'm going to say no, but you'd like to hope for it.
You absolutely would like to hope for it. I just can't imagine that. I mean, it wasn't like it was 1970. It wasn't 1980. We're talking early 2000s where this is happening. And how were they not able? I know it's kind of like this, the start of the internet. There's not a ton of social media. Like if something like this happens today, it's going to be all over your TikTok, your Instagrams, your YouTubes in the matter of seconds.
But I feel like there's stuff that's being hidden.
Oh, big time.
And I feel like it was a cop that did it.
Cop or cops? Think one.
I think it's a group effort.
Yeah, I feel like it would be too much for one, but it's obviously in my opinion as well, these are just our opinions, that it was somebody that was a cop. They knew him. They knew the areas to probably dump him, swamps, and just nothing. I just don't understand how you can cover up 8 murders.
Mm-hmm.
Man. And it's one of those things, too. I think we've had other cases where, and there was a comment here in the notes where they're just like, you know, if they're sex workers or traffickers or anything like that, then nobody will care. Nobody will notice them missing. And it's like, somebody will. Somebody will. Unfortunately, it probably isn't going to be a family member. A lot of times, you know, they cut the ties and everything like that, or they just kind of no contact, but they still have friends.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is going to do that. Man, and then we're just kind of looking to real quick. No suspects at all, because police, that's what we said, but there's a little bit of an update on this. It says police have arrested or issued warrants for the arrest of 4 people in connection with the case. 2 people were actually held on murder charges for months, but they were released due to issues with evidence. Then we talked about Frankie Richard, the man with 2. He was actually a local strip club owner, suspected drug dealer, and he actually admitted to being a crack addict and to having relations with most of the victims. He was among those last seen with that Christine Lopez that we talked about. Law enforcement's own witness have connected Richard to the sheriff's office. 2 female inmates who stated that sheriff office disposed of evidence in the Lopez case alleged that the evidence was discarded at the behest of Richard. And then you had Brian Chad Jones, 3 first names, and Lawrence Nixon, a cousin of the 5th victim, Laconia Brown. They were briefly charged with second-degree murder in the there was an Erneston Patterson case, but the sheriff's office did not test the alleged crime scene until 15 months after the murder, and found it failed to demonstrate the presence of blood. That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to check a crime scene out for 15 months? There has to be a reason or a weird protocol, right? You would think?
You would think.
Whew. But like with every case and everything, there was media attention, which is surprising as well. And the 2010 novel, you ever heard of The Glass Rainbow by James Lee Burke?
Nope.
No. Well, it's set against the background of the murders. And then Burke mentioned them again later in another book in 2018. 2011 investigative podcast series, shout out Behind the Yellow Tape. It spanned 12 episodes. They threw it out there. 2012 episode of the series Dark Minds. You ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. And M.W. Phelps is the host, visited the area and interviewed several people. There's another book called Murder in the Bay, Who Killed the Women, known as the Jeff Davis 8 by Ethan Brown. Maybe we'll get it on the bookshelf or on the Kindle.
Maybe.
Then it was part of the True Crime Tuesday series in 2018 on the Dr. Oz show. You know Dr. Oz?
Mm-hmm.
You know him? Let's get him on the show. Then there's a
Not personally.
2019 2-part investigative discovery documentary series, and then a couple of other things. But yeah, it's been all over the media. The HBO, they said that the Jeff Davis 8 cases were not inspired for the first season of the HBO series True Detective. But there's also some Elm Street that says they're not no influence in the Nightmare on Elm Street on Elm Street in Potsdam, which we already did an episode callback. Go check it out. Man, let's wrap this up. What's your kind of final thoughts on this, Meg?
Sticking with my original.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was the cop or cops?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, then I'm gonna go.
And I think there's other cops covering for those cops.
I'm gonna go with the strip club owner, man with 2 first names.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say he did it, but I think he was kind of boys with the cops, so I think they were kind of helping him out.
Maybe.
Small town strip club. If there's only one, maybe the cops were in there. Maybe they weren't supposed to be in there. Maybe they were boys. I don't know. I think there's too many possibilities, and for it to just go under the rug, I mean, there's a lot of shady things that happen at these strip clubs. A lot of cover-ups. Gotta have the boys' backs. And we've seen in a couple other things, I mean, that we've done, and we mentioned earlier that the power in the South, it runs a lot of things. I mean, look at, what was that one case with the kids and the murder and the father, the Danus or whatever? That was a big, big case, and it was on everything. They had some power in the South, you know, and they got away with a little more than normal people would. So, all right. With that being said, the Jeff Davis 8 case is obviously one of the most chilling and frustrating unsolved murder cases in modern America. And not just because of the crimes themselves, obviously they're terrible, but because of the systematic failures that allowed it to happen. So as we mentioned, there is a book that I want to get, The Murder in the Bayou by Ethan Brown. And it actually dives really deep into the case and the corruption that may have covered it up. So if you're interested and want to learn more, go get it out. Ethan Brown, hit us up. Let's do a follow-up on this. But as always, if you have any information, you can actually contact the FBI tip line because someone out there knows the truth. So this, obviously, the Yore Town Podcast. We can't thank you enough for listening. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the biggest mysteries aren't about who did it, but about who wants it covered up. What do you think? Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. It's a wrap.
Wrap.
Wrap. I feel like I have to do one more thing because I didn't hear a dun dun dun. And the dun dun queen has to say.
Sorry.
But guess what, everybody? We'll be back next week for another thrilling, engaging, mysterious episode of the Yore Town Podcast.
Dun dun dun.
It worked perfect.
Sorry. I can't stop thinking about my burnt tongue. It's kind of.
I've been watching you struggle with that in this episode. So
I really burn it.
What'd you burn it on?
Soup.
Ramen.
It's like, you know, like when you take a sip of soup and it's way too hot, but you don't know if you should swallow it because it'll burn your esophagus, or if you should spit it out, but then it's going to make a mess or potentially burn either you or someone next to you. Yeah. It's one of those. So I just kind of held it and it burned, and it just kept burning me.
Oh. All right. Well, I got to take care of my burn victim, everybody.
I'll be okay.
I'll be okay. I'm going to make you a song when we do this about the burnt tongue of old Maggie Poo.
It's going to be one of those ones tomorrow where like the roof of your mouth is all weird and then you can't stop playing with it. Then it gets sore.
We got a situation over here, people.
Yeah. Any pointers on how to make it not so sore?
Yeah, it's not like you can just chew on an aloe vera plant, right?
Right.
Can you?
I mean, I'm sure it's
frowned upon in this establishment.
I was going to say I'm sure it's fine, but
I'll try it.
Probably doesn't taste great, and I'd rather not.
I'll go first just in case it hurts. I feel like if somebody can take an aloe vera plant poisoning.
I'm pretty sure it's like you can eat aloe.
I'm going to put it on our garlic parm chicken wraps tonight.
No.
All right. Well,
I don't want to do that.
Okay. She's out. All right, everybody. But if you do have recommendations for a story, a tale, spooky, true crime, or whatever, please let us know in the comments, and we'll put our little twist.
Or a burnt tongue.
Or if you have any recommendations how to fix the burnt tongue, save Meg. But all right, that's all we got. We'll be back next week, everybody. Hopefully her tongue is okay and she can talk.
I'll be fine.
And I'll just say, did the cat get your tongue? Nope, the soup did.
Stop it.
All right.
I'll be fine.
She'll be fine. We'll be fine. You'll be fine. And we'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.